Well, a trade was made. And I don't know how to feel about it because we're going to talk about both the Raiders and the Ravens. Let's go straight into the Ravens. Maxx Crosby is a Raven, a Baltimore Raven. They gave up a 2026 first round pick, which is currently number 14, and a 2027. Sounds pretty good. I do want to try to get into at some point teams that were interested. But I think I'll try to do that at the end. But I hate and I like this move. Here's why I like it. It makes that defense really, really scary. You look at all these defenses around the league that they have talented players, and let's see what they do with them. I mean, we see a lot of defenses that have a lot of talent that don't do anything, and there's a potential that this could be that. But Crosby brings that element of the pass rush that you kind of need. They haven't had a dominant guy since Terrell Suggs. Also, one of the reasons why I don't feel like this was necessary. When you look at the championship teams, look at Seattle. Their best pass rusher isn't a star pass rusher making top dollar money. It's not, it's not a TJ, it's not Miles, it's not Max. Like, these guys are the best at their positions, but they're not getting a championship, right? It is not them winning a championship. The last best dominant players have been in the middle. Chris Jones, even when the Eagles won, they didn't have a dominant pass rusher, in my opinion. And then you look at a team like Aaron Donald was the guy who was for them. Like, that wasn't an edge rusher. It was a, interior lineman, D lineman. So it's like those are the last star defensive players to win a championship in the defensive line position. And I don't think this does a lot. Like, congrats. Like, this helps you. Your run game is going to be very hard to stop. The run game is going to be very easy to stop with not only Roquan Smith, who did take a down year, but like when you look at all three phases just look at every phase of the game. You have Kyle Hamilton, one of, if not the best safety in his position, right? You have a really good corner, not a dominant corner, but you have a good corner in Nate Wiggins. Please, camera focus. You have Roquan Smith, who I said did take a down year, in my opinion. It wasn't as noticeable and was not helping stop the run. And, this whole interior, this whole D-line core as a whole did not play well, which made me think that the two positions in need that they were going to go into was wide receiver, O-lineman, and defensive lineman. Somebody on the defensive line. Well, now they fix one of those, but now you have a blaring hole. Yes, you bring on a huge contract. You're bringing over Max's contract, which he's not a dominant pass rusher like Miles and TJ. Like, in my opinion, like, those guys deserve that money. TJ plays a different position that even if he's not sacking quarterbacks, he is still getting pressures, or he's dropping back into coverage and making his game that way, or just affecting the run game. Miles gets the quarterback. Over the years, he's changed kind of what he's done, but he's gotten to the quarterback the last few years. Then you look at Max, who is a dominant, hey, I'm going to kind of wrap you up. I'm a run stuffer. I'm going to stop you here. Which just makes you really think about the potential and possibilities that they have when it comes down to who needs to be where. And I really think that the Ravens defense, like I said, is in a good position, awesome position. Congrats. I don't think they're in a good position when it comes down to offense. Lamar is a good quarterback, but can we just take a moment to look at what this offense looked like last year? They had struggles on the O-line. By the way, they just lost their center. They just lost their veteran center. So you lost your center. That guard was terrible, Afalu or whatever. He was either a guard or a tackle. I think he was a guard. So you have a blaring hole in the middle of your field. So congrats. Lamar not only doesn't have weapons to throw to, but now he doesn't have an O-line to protect him. Like, I don't understand the move, because as an offense, like, what are we doing? Uh, I don't understand how, as a team, you're helping one side of the football, but you still haven't done what a lot of teams don't do. There's a reason Buffalo doesn't go too far. There's a reason why the Ravens always choke and don't get too far. And there's a reason why the Bengals haven't been back to the big game. There are 3 big reasons, but the 2 biggest reasons are that they either don't have an O-line in front of them, or they don't have a dominant wide receiver and catchers to go with. Obviously, Joe Burrow has the catchers, but he doesn't have the protection. And now he has to face 3 defensive guys that might just end his career early. But there's a reason why DJ Moore is going over to Buffalo to be a number 1 wide receiver, and they're hoping to probably draft another wide receiver as well, or to get one in free agency to pair up and to have a dominant wide receiver core to be able to get better. You have the tight ends, you have Cook, you have those pieces on the offense for Buffalo. Baltimore doesn't have that now. Their offense is now missing a glaring hole. They're letting Isaiah Likely walk, which is stupid in my opinion. I don't understand why everyone keeps bringing, well, they have Mark Andrews. What does Mark Andrews matter? Their protection for the quarterback and their protection for their running back, their run blockers, are not there anymore. You're missing 2 blaring holes. So now you're getting put into a situation where you're just not going to have success. And congratulations, like, you have draft picks, like, and you can maybe help, and they normally draft well in certain positions. But I mean, missing this first round pick is going to be detrimental to their offense. I think that they could have used this on a defensive lineman. I like the guy from Clemson if they were going defense. I thought they were going to go for the USC wide receiver. I thought that they were going to go get Lamar, a number 1 wide receiver in the draft, at least first round wide receiver, pair him up with Flowers, and then they could be a good duo. It looks like Bateman is done with his time. So, who knows what they do in the wide receiver market, but what they do every year is they consistently sign these old people, and it's similar to the Steelers. Like, they sign these older people and act like they're going to do something, but they never do. And that's going to be the problem for the Ravens. I think that this is great for their defense and their defensive-minded head coach. They're kind of putting themselves in a Pittsburgh Steelers situation, the exact same, where their defense now looks so good, but their offense doesn't have the necessary pieces to continue to get them higher and higher to where they eventually want to go, and that's the Super Bowl. I don't think that this is good for their team. They need a number 1 wide receiver. They need O-line help, and they're going to need extra tight ends. Like, I'm assuming they'll probably be in on the guy from, if they want to get, like, a good tight end that I think is a sneaky good one, it's the guy from Georgia. I definitely think you can get him in, like, the 5th round, and 5th or maybe 6th round, and you could have him as your your second receiving option as a tight end. Andrews has taken many steps back after the 2 years, and fumbles have been a big problem for both of their backfield guys. So we'll see what happens with the Ravens offense. I want to talk about teams real quick before we get into what the Raiders got and what they should do with the 14th overall pick now. The Ravens beat the Cowboys because the Cowboys didn't want to get rid of their first-round pick. They wanted 2 first-round picks. The Cowboys said no. They wanted to give them a first and a second. So I don't think the Raiders were going to budge. I think that I wonder if the Raiders maybe try to talk about potential, hey, well, we'll take, maybe a Pickens, add on to that deal, maybe add Pickens, first round pick, and then we'll just say even, because then it gives them a number 1 wide receiver for the Raiders. I think they were really held in on the first overall pick. I'm curious for the Raiders, did they ask for next year's first round pick as well? Or did they ask for this year's first round pick? Both of them. Because I have a feeling they wanted the 3 first rounders this year so they can get Mendoza, get him a weapon, and get him a tackle. Another team rumored was the Jaguars. Now, the Jags is so intriguing to me because the Jaguars are a team that it's like, well, who and what would they have signed? I think that they could have just signed a potential trade with. I think they clearly go with their number one guy. Like, I think you trade away Thomas, right? Brian Thomas. I think you put him in the deal to get a number one wide receiver over. They would have to have traded a first round pick a different year because they don't have their first round pick this year, because they traded up. I think that it would have been a little difficult to make a package because they would have wanted a lot in the deal. And not having a first round pick, I think, affected that deal a lot. Those are the only two teams that are sort of interested. I'm curious what the Bears weren't intrigued about potentially doing that. Like the offense looked great last year. Go out, get Crosby, really solidify that defense and have that guy. And I think that Bears team could have done some damage. So I think the Bears are probably the one team that is like, what the fuck are we doing? We could have made a move. But that's it. Now let's look at what the Raiders got. They got the 2026 first round pick, which is the 14th overall pick. And then they got a 2027. Now, here's the thing if you're the Raiders and why you like this deal. You now get a second round pick. You get to draft twice, right? And there's a potential that they trade down. I think there is a potential or maybe they even trade up. Like maybe that there's a potential possibility that they like someone so much also in the top 5 that they'll be willing to basically flip this for Crosby. They'll be willing to spend this pick and this pick. And I'm going to be the first to say maybe they trade to Tennessee or the Jets. And maybe they stack up on more picks. Because if you're the Jets and you get a call and they're like, hey, we're thinking about moving up. So here's my thing really to consider. The Cardinals and the Jets. If you're the Jets and the Raiders are saying, hey, we want to trade up for the second overall pick. We'll give you this first rounder this year, a first rounder next year, and like a mid-round pick later on. Probably for next season, not for this one. They'll probably consider it because then they will have a stacked draft class over the next few years to really change that team. Now, if you're the Cardinals as well, and you're like, hey, what about you guys? Are you guys interested in the first round pick next year as well to have that stacked? Because that class is stacked with quarterbacks, which means a lot of talented players are going to drop down. So do you maybe take that offer? And the Raiders go out and get the best defensive player and the best offensive player in this draft, quarterback-wise, and all of a sudden their rebuild gets pushed a little bit. Here's what I think they're going to do. They draft Mendoza at number 1. You have the 14th overall pick. That leaves you with 3 options. The first option, get him a weapon. If you want to be worried about fixing the defense and fixing the O-line during free agency, and instead you're like, let's trust in Beck and in Thornton and Tucker and May and Bowers and Genty. Let's trust those guys. Let's fix the O-line. Go get a guy like Lindenbaum, whatever his name was, from the Ravens. Make him your center. Jackson Powers-Johnson at guard. Now you just need to fix 2 positions on the O-line, and all of a sudden their O-line is revamped. You have your run game, your tight ends. You go out in the draft and get a guy like I can't even have like a list in front of me, but you have options and pretty damn good ones. So I think that there is a possibility that they go out and do some damage. The big question for me is what they do with that pick if they go for a wide receiver. Do they go for maybe the tackle from Utah or maybe the Georgia tackle? Because if you can go after him, I think that's huge. Because if he's still available, and maybe even if you want to trade down, because there is a potential, I just mentioned trading up, they could trade down, maybe get a lower first round pick and add for this draft as well. Get that guy from Georgia. You now have your tackles, And like I said, you have Jackson Powers Johnson, you get your other center, and then you have a guard to fill up, and that team has now solidified their offensive line. This would be huge for the Raiders. Now, there's so many other options that they can go after. One of the biggest is that I like the linebacker from the Texas Tech. I think they need to heavily go after him now with that second overall, or that second pick. That second round pick that they have, they need to go get him. If he's still available, I think he's a first round talent. If they don't go after him, they need to make that move. That is a guy that I think you could build your future around at being your leader on the defense. And I think that that's kind of where they have to go. They have a lot of cap space. They opened it up with they released Geno. They're releasing another guy. Like they're releasing guys, and that's helping them make cap. And now they got rid of Crosby. They have a whole bunch of cap space to work with. So the Raiders have a lot of work to do. I don't want to say who wins this trade because I think that's stupid. Like clearly it's way too early, and like we're not about to be like, oh, the Raiders won or the, I just don't think it happened. I think the Raiders definitely, if they could land on some picks, all of a sudden, this rebuild will be kind of perfect. And they needed to move on. They needed to move on for Crosby. The only way you're going to be able to have a successful rebuild is by starting fresh and not holding on to loose change. And I think this is a smart move. Let me know what you guys think. Do you think this is going to help the Raiders? Do you think this is going to help the Ravens? Do you agree with me thinking that they're focusing so much on the defense and not helping Lamar, even though that's been the real problem since forever for this team? Let me know what you guys think. Like this video, like to comment down below. I want to know your thoughts and opinions as always, and I will see you all later. Good night.